Okay? Today we're going to move on, and the next thing we're going to talk about is ethics. Before we start talking about ethics, I want everybody to understand the word rhetoric and how we're going to be using the word rhetoric in this class. Okay? Yesterday, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi sent a note to the President, said during this period of partial government shutdown, with the Department of Homeland Security not being funded, she did not think it was appropriate for security reasons for the President to deliver the State of the Union message at the Capitol building because the security concerns would be too great. Okay? I don't know whether or not that's true or not, but the Speaker said it, and she sort of fired a shot across the President's bow to let him know that she is fighting for more control of the situation. Across the board, the phrase you heard over and over again yesterday, if you were watching the news networks, is the Speaker of the House has elevated her rhetoric. Okay? What do you think we mean by rhetoric in that case? What? Her point? Okay, that's a good definition. What else? So rhetoric is usually used to just denote some sort of political partisanship. Okay? That's not how we're going to be using it in this class. Rhetoric is going to be used, and I'll use the classical definitions. Okay? Cambridge Dictionary defines it as speech or writing that is effective and persuasive. Okay? The Macmillan Dictionary defines it as a style of speaking or writing that is intended to influence people. So we're going to talk about your speech having a rhetorical intent. Okay? Is your intent as effective and persuasive. Now, the first of your speeches is going to be an informative speech. The second of your speeches is going to be a problem solution speech. Only your last speech is going to be explicitly persuasive. Okay? Let me ask you this. Let me give you an example. So I'm going to talk to you today about, it's going to be an informative speech, and I'm going to talk to you about the effects of common household fertilizers you use on your lawn and its effect on the fish populations and how it's hurting the fish populations in the Clark Hill Reservoir. Okay? Everybody understand what I'm going to be talking about? Roundup and all those fertilizers you put on your, the weed killers and the fertilizers you put on your lawn, and how that's harming the fish populations in Clark Hill Reservoir. Okay? Everybody know where Clark Hill Reservoir is. Everybody should be familiar with it. Is that a persuasive speech?
That's an opinion.
Well, no, I've got facts. Let's work on the assumption I got facts to back it up. Okay? It's informative, but if I'm telling you that the stuff you're spraying on your lawn is killing all the fish in the lake, am I being persuasive?
Yes.
I said no because you're not telling us why we should stop spraying it on the lake and what kind of effect.
I'm not telling you to stop spraying this stuff on, I'm giving you a reason why not. I'm just not explicitly telling you not to. Everybody understand? So there are those people. What the hell happened? Okay, I got it. I'm good. All right, there we go. All right. Most people will tell you that any time you stand up in front of somebody to speak, you're being persuasive. Either explicitly by saying, I'm here today to persuade you to do something, or implicitly by the facts I choose to give you is a rhetorical decision. Okay? Everybody understand what I'm saying there? Okay? I could give you both sides of the argument and discuss all day long about how really, lawn fertilizers aren't that big of a deal. But the fact that I've chosen to present this information was a decision I made, and that could be considered to be persuasive. If I come up here and I tell you that smoking is harmful to your health, but I don't tell you to stop smoking, am I being persuasive? Am I? If I show you a picture of a lung of somebody who smokes?
Yes.
Is that being persuasive?
Yes.
Okay. So it's really hard to detangle rhetoric and public speaking. So you're going to hear the phrase rhetoric from me a lot. Okay. And you're also going to hear me, if I don't understand what your speech was about or if I'm looking at your outline and I don't understand what your speech is about, you may see the phrase, I don't know, or the question, I'm not sure what your rhetorical intent is here. Okay? What is your effective purpose here? So I want everybody to understand that. So inherently, every time we get up to purvey information to somebody, we're being at least implicitly persuasive. And if nothing else, you got to be persuasive to get people to do what? What's the first act you do as a public speaker that is absolutely persuasive? I said it the other day in class. What's the first thing we do in a speech?
You want to get the audience attention.
You know, the first thing you have to do when you stand up here, and you won't have a card in the greatest speech. Well, when you stand up here, first thing you have to do is persuade the audience to listen to you. Okay? So what we're going to do is today, for the rest of the day, what time do we go to? 10:30?
9:25.
9:25. Damn it. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do for the rest of the day is talk about our responsibilities. Now, everybody's read the First Amendment of the Constitution, right? It's been a while, but yeah. Everybody's aware of the U.S. Constitution? Getting some really sort of... That's okay. You could be president of the United States. I'm just... sorry, that was a cheap shot. I apologize. Okay? First Amendment of the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, a bunch of old white dudes, just got together one day and wrote the Constitution, right? And they wanted to include a whole lot of stuff about your basic rights in there, but what they decided was, let's just get this through, and then we could go back and go knock out some of the details just to make sure they're clear. Okay, because, I don't know if you knew this or not, they did not have word processors in 1787. They had to write out everything by hand, and then people came in and go, they got the big, huge Constitution, and they went, you didn't put free speech in there. And Jefferson and Madison and all those guys, we're not rewriting that. You're just going to have to add an amendment. Okay, that's how we got the Bill of Rights. That's really not that far off. They didn't want to rewrite the whole thing and then have to fight about it all over again. So they passed the Constitution, and then they passed the 10 Amendments, which are known as the Bill of Rights, the first 10 Amendments. This is the most basic right that the Founding Fathers thought you should have. No law respecting establishment of religion, abridging the freedom of speech, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble to redress grievances. Okay? So, freedom of speech is so ingrained in this country that it's the very first right, one of the very first rights the Founding Fathers knocked down. Now, our freedom of speech includes we don't have to speak if we don't want to. You don't have to say the Pledge of Allegiance. You don't have to sing the national anthem, as we've all had very clearly demonstrated to us in the last couple of years. You can wear black armbands if you want to, symbolic gestures that don't disrupt classes. Okay? You can use certain offensive words in political ads. Okay? We had a member of the U.S. House of Representatives call the President of the United States an MFer the other day. Okay? All right? And that's perfectly legal. You can advertise commercial products and professional services. That's why, and this ruling, which happened back in 1978, is why every third commercial you see on TV is some lawyer. Okay? Because a lawyer went to the Supreme Court and said, hey, my State Bar Association says I can't advertise on television. That's impinging on my freedom of speech. Okay? And then you can engage in symbolic speech like it is. You have a right, if you want to burn an American flag. You can burn someone in effigy. If you get really upset about it, you can stand out there and burn, me in effigy if you want to. I mean, they may make you go out on, I don't know if you can don't do that. They probably say you can't smoke, and that's probably on campus, and that's smoking. Okay? You cannot incite actions to harm others. You can't make or distribute obscene materials. Now, the definition of obscene materials is... the Supreme Court has taken the bold position of saying that depends on the community. Okay, so obscene materials in South Carolina is not the same thing as obscene materials in California. And yeah, we've already discussed that in here. You can prevent students from printing articles in school newspapers that the administration don't like. Students can't make an obscene speech at a school-sponsored event. And again, that's how we get the right, we have the authority to come in with the inclusivity policy and say, you're not going to give a speech that's offensive or inappropriate for this class. And then finally, Students can't advocate. Yeah, and if your informative speech is going to be how to roll a joint, that's not going to happen because marijuana is still illegal in the state of South Carolina. Now, if you want to, what?
Until you get caught.
What? As soon as you get caught?
Until you get caught.
Until you get caught, yeah. Now, yeah, one thing I had when I was teaching at Auburn, every third frat boy wanted to talk about how to smuggle a liquor into a football game. I'm like going, I'm an employee of this university. That's not going to happen, okay? All right? So not only do we have freedoms, but we also have what goes hand in hand with freedoms? Responsibilities. Say responsibility. Say it really loud.
Responsibilities.
Responsibilities, that's right. Come on, Clint, work with me, man. Work with me. I didn't say whisper it, I said say it, okay? All right.
It came up.
Okay, so we have this freedom of speech, but we are also expected to use that freedom appropriately, right? Ethically. And what I'm going to tell you by the end of the day is not only do you want to do it because A, it's the right thing to do, but who believes in that in the 21st century, right? Basically, if you can get away with it, why don't you? Okay? Okay, have you not been watching the news the last 2 years? I'm not talking about right, I'm talking about real. Okay? Keeping it real. Okay? But we're also going to discuss before it's all over with that if you're unethical, it will come back to bite you. So the first thing we want to talk about is some ethical models. Okay? Or some ethical issues. First of all, speech communication principles are amoral. What does amoral mean? Without morals is the obvious definition. Okay, what does without morals mean?
To not have any standards.
Does it have any standards? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you apply standards, you're already applying some sort of ethical model to it. So that's not quite right. If I say something that was without morals, what does it mean? What? Not necessarily without any goals. Okay, what do ethics, you said it already, what do ethics allow us to do? Distinguish right and wrong. So if I say speech communication principles are amoral, what does that mean? Well, not only do they not have a clear definition because they may, but the principles themselves are neither right nor wrong. They just exist. Okay? Everybody understand what I'm saying there? If I told you, and I offended one person, so I always follow on with an explanation. I just threw out real quick one day a statement that is absolutely completely true. The speech communication principles used by Adolf Hitler are the exact same speech communication principles used by Martin Luther King. Okay? The difference in the ethics and the morality comes in the communicator, not in the principles they employ. Everybody understand what I'm saying? So a lot of the reason, and I talked to you the other day about how after World War II, there suddenly became a whole lot of interest in speech communication principles, and so sociologists and psychologists, and there wasn't even really a field called speech communications before World War II. It was lumped under the field of rhetoric, which was part of English, composition, speech, the whole 9 yards. Suddenly after World War II, because Adolf Hitler, it's not amazing and it's not disturbing that Adolf Hitler could get 5,000 hardcore, radicals to follow him. What is amazing about Adolf Hitler is 32 million people in a Western European country went along with it. And a lot of people began to wonder, how the hell did that happen? Okay? And what they came to, and what you have to understand is, Hitler did not make public speaking bad. Martin Luther King did not make public speaking good. Hitler was bad, Martin Luther King was good. Everybody understand that? That is a very key point, because holding you accountable and holding the speaker accountable for what they say up here is going to be what we talk about today. Okay? And you see a whole hell of a lot of politicians. And I'll be brutally honest with you. Okay? Our president has got people full-time out there going, well, yeah, the president didn't tell the truth, but what he really meant was. Well, the question you have to ask yourself is, why didn't he say that? Okay? Anybody know who Stephen King is, and not the author, the member of the U.S. House of Representatives who's been in the news the last couple of days? Steve King, I think he's from one of them square states, like Utah or Iowa or somewhere out there. Okay? Told the New York Times over the weekend, I don't understand when white supremacy, white nationalists, and Western civilization became negative terms. An elected member of the U.S. House of Representatives says, I don't understand when white supremacists became a bad thing. Okay? And now he's sitting there going, I can't believe it. People are taking me, out of context. Well, no, the whole quote is there. It's not out of context. You said something stupid and now you're being held accountable for it. Okay? Everybody understand that? So if you speak, you can expect people to put the ethics on you. In a free society, we expect people who want to influence or persuade us to do so ethically. Right? Big thing that broke yesterday in the news. Turns out that on online polls, Michael Cohen, the president's lawyer, paid an IT firm to auto vote in those polls so that the polls looked like everybody was supporting candidate Trump at that time. That's not ethical behavior. Okay? We expect people to speak ethically. Then finally, by what standards do we determine whether or not the speaker is being ethical? Okay? We all think we speak ethically. I don't think there's very many people who actually get up in front of a group of people and say, I'm going to lie today just so I can get something out of them. Okay? I think we all use an ethical model. First of all, though, we start looking at an ethics pyramid. Okay? Do we have an ethical intent? Okay? And from the receiver's point of view, are we listening with an open mind? Are we using ethical means? Are the tools and behaviors we employ to achieve the outcome ethical? Then finally, is our end or what our desired goal, is that ethical? If you don't have an ethical intent, you know how a pyramid works. If the base isn't solid, everything else crumbles, right? So if you can have an ethical end state, but if the rest of this is not, the way you do it is not ethical, you're ultimately probably going to be deemed to be an unethical speaker. Right? Everybody got me? Everybody understand? Very quiet today. You guys are deep in contemplation of ethics, deep in contemplation of right and wrong. Okay. So let's start talking about models. This is the one the ends justify the means. What does that mean? The ends justify the means.
Ties everything together.
What?
It ties everything together.
Okay, but what does it mean? We're going to look at three different ways we tie everything together. Specifically, when you say, hey, listen, the ends justified the means. What does that mean you did?
You did something wrong, but for a good cause.
You did something wrong, but for a good reason, what you perceive to be a good reason. Okay? Where do we see the ends justify the means? Well, I haven't seen it because I don't participate in this activity. But where do most people see the ends justify the means?
Riots.
Riots? Okay, I was thinking something a lot more basic. Wow, you just went deep. Okay? Got very deep. Anybody here? No, don't raise your hands because I don't want to embarrass you. Match.com. I mean, I could go on Match.com and describe myself as being 6'4", weighing 180 pounds, and having a full head of curly hair. But eventually they're going to meet me, and that's going to be very depressing. But the end I want to do is I want to meet people, for a potential romantic relationship. Or maybe not romantic, just meet, okay? All right? Why do y'all laugh at the idea that I might date? I haven't in 28 years. I agree with that, but still, okay? Yeah, every one of those pictures on Tinder is exactly what that person looks like. But they cheat a little bit for the purposes of getting to meet people. Okay? Now, in a riot, if we're going to go deep, let's be serious. Okay? How do you use ends justify the means in a riot?
Well, some people, when they're feeling oppressive, and they want their point to be heard. Some go a riot or a protest, and sometimes they do get out of hand. And in their minds, depending on the ends, they're saying that whatever happened during the riot, it justified the means that they were trying to portray.
So in other words, our society is so oppressive, I had to destroy property in order to make my point.
In their minds, yes.
Another good example is parents and their children. The ends is that they may whoop them or yell at them or something, but in the ending, they just want what's best for them. So they do something wrong too.
Okay? A lot of people are not going. I'll tell you what we did with, my daughter, I used to drink a lot of iced tea. Then I started getting kidney stones, so I stopped doing that, okay? I used to drink iced tea every night with dinner. My daughter, when she got to about 3 years old, decided she wanted to have what I was having to drink with dinner. And so we weren't giving a 3-year-old iced tea at 6 o'clock at night. Anybody in here with children? Loading your kid up with caffeine at 6 o'clock at night, is that a good idea? No. So what I would do is I would say, okay, I'll get you what I got. So I would take my glass back into the kitchen, and then I would fill her cup with apple juice. Okay? And then I would hand it to her. Well, I don't know if she caught on to it or if it was just the next level of escalation. She did not want me taking my glass back into the kitchen. She wanted what was in my glass. So I started pouring apple juice into my glass in the kitchen, walking out with it, and she was going like, I want that. And I'd go, okay. And I'd pour the apple juice from my glass into her cup, and we're good to go. One of our friends, we had some friends over for dinner. They did not have children. They saw me do that. And the wife, I was friends with the husband, the wife, who I did not know very well, was appalled. Just mortified. And she wanted to lecture me about it there at the table, and I basically just cut her off, and I said, she goes to bed in about an hour and a half. We can discuss this then. When she went to bed, she said, you're lying to your daughter. And she was, I think, a little upset when I went, yeah. Okay, I don't understand what you're saying. Well, okay, that is a statement of fact. I am being dishonest. She goes, is that any way to raise a child? And I'm like, yes, trickery and deceit is a fair child rearing method. And when you have children, you can tell me you've never done that. About 5 years later, we saw her children, and she didn't do that. They were the worst children you've ever seen in your life. Yeah, she was one of those people, we don't give my children sugar. And I'm like going, okay, that's great. And they're acting like that, and they're not high on something. Okay. And this is not a joke. At one point, when we were over at their house, my oldest daughter just walked up and goes, why do they act like that? And I'm like, because they've got bad parents. Okay? We use ends justify the means all the time, but our country was founded on ends justify the means. Civil disobedience, the entire basis is the ends justify the means. We violated the law. We committed treason. We violated every oath of loyalty we've ever made to our government and our king. But the ends justify the means. Human freedom required us to do that. Okay? What's the problem with this, though?
It can get out of hand.
It can get out of hand? Do you have an example?
Like if you want to protest the government and saying, I don't think that you're doing well, and then you kill a bunch of senators.
Okay, that's wow. Wow. And you're speaking. She's saying that as an academic exercise. Okay, this is going to go on YouTube just to let you know. It was just theoretical. Of course, now the hybrid class is going, whoa. Okay? All right? Yeah, go back to your writing. How many, well, no, I'm not going to ask that either because that, we all are aware of the Fox News channel. Okay, right? Okay, and we're all aware of MSNBC. MSNBC isn't as far to the right and to the left as Fox News is to the MSNBC is not as far to the left as Fox News is to the right, but they both inhabit different ends of the political spectrum. So if MSNBC sees somebody, a riot going on and people are breaking into the Target and stealing TV sets, MSNBC casts it as righteous outrage. How does Fox News cast it?
Citizens going crazy.
You got urban lawlessness. Another indication of the lawlessness that's breaking out in our cities. Okay? So you don't necessarily get to decide whether or not your means justifies the ends, or the ends justify the means. Okay? That's going to be determined by some other people later on. Okay? And people are going to judge you in history. Because I will tell you, in the latter half of the 19th century, you know, anybody, did y'all learn about manifest destiny in American history? What's manifest destiny?
It's your destiny to move west.
Yeah, it's the destiny of the white Anglo-Saxon population of this country to move from the Atlantic seaboard to the Pacific seaboard and dominate an entire continent. Okay? Now, how do you think manifest destiny stacks up today as far as, you know, ethical thinking? Well, first of all, in order to do that, you have to have a relatively, for most of a big chunk of that history, you have to have a relatively large subjugated population that is a low-cost labor force, which is usually referred to as slavery. The second thing is, there's millions of people that are already on that land that you got to get rid of. Okay? So while in the 1880s, Manifest Destiny said that it was okay to massacre the native populations, the aboriginal populations of North America, in the 21st century, we now look back on those people as a bunch of barbarians. Everybody understand that? But the ends justified the means, they said. We do not want to go out and kill the Native American population, but unfortunately, they're not going to leave otherwise. Okay? Now, is it sometimes okay? I mean, there are things where we say there was, you know, you guys live with the ends justify the means every day. Every single day. How many of y'all have ever had a vaccination? Okay? Do we want to torture and kill small, cute bunnies and chimpanzees and every other animal? Okay? But animal testing is part and parcel about medical developments and pharmaceutical developments. So we say the ends justify the means. Okay? I'm not saying these are either good or bad. These are amoral principles. The next one we're going to say situational ethics. What do you think situational ethics are? Oh, come on. We've also used situational ethics every single day. Especially, how many people in here are married? Just 2? How many of you are involved in a serious relationship with another person? So there's that 2 and maybe 3 or 4 more. You are involved in situational ethics every day.
So is it you're put in a predicament to where you have to make a decision?
Yeah, and what would normally be unethical, you say, you know, you weren't there, man. Okay. Hey, do I look good in this? Does this shirt look good on me? Yeah, looks great. What the? How many of y'all, hey, I'd really love to go see that new Transformers movie. I know you would wanted to see Forever Love, but don't you think the Transformer movie might be a better movie? Sure, I would love to go see the Transformer movie. There's a new X-Men movie out. Ooh, let's go see that. Okay? Fortunately, my wife and I have pretty similar taste in movies, and that doesn't happen very often. But yeah. How many times has somebody that you really care about and don't want to upset cook something for you that was absolutely horrible? And you ate it and you went, is it good? It's great. It's great. Something I learned early on, my wife was a Russian studies major and traveled in Eastern Europe. And so when we were dating, she made me borscht. Any of y'all ever had borscht? It's beet soup. Really big in Eastern Europe. Very nutritious, very filling. It's beet soup. She served it for me. I was very frank in my telling her, I will tell you now, that was probably almost 30 years ago, and I still hear about the borscht comment. Okay? And when she serves me something, if I hesitate in saying it's fantastic, she tries something new, and I don't. How do you like it? It's pretty good. It's better than borscht. And I'm like, 30 years. Okay. We all use situational ethics. Okay. On a larger scale, again, we don't get to be the end judge of whether or not the situation justified it. This is also very similar to ends justify the means. Okay? January of 1942, President of the United States, Franklin Roosevelt, who is generally considered one of the greatest presidents of American history, issued an order to round up every Japanese immigrant and every person in the United States of Japanese ancestry and put them into relocation camps. When the British did it during the Boer War and when the Germans did it, we called them concentration camps. They weren't death camps, but they were certainly there to keep people in one place. Okay? These were U.S. citizens who had committed no crime. Their only thing they were being judged on was their race. Okay? And at the time, everybody said, well, we don't want to do this, but we have to do this from the threat from Japan. History does not approve of that now. Okay? The Supreme Court has since gone back and said the Katsumoto decision, which was the legal decision that reinforced all of that, was the worst decision since Dred Scott back in the 1840s. But situationally, seemed like it was the thing to do at the time. Okay, so if you're going to use situation ethics, you better hope everybody judges the situation the same way you do. Okay? Finally, what we're going to use and what we're going to focus on in this class is credibility-centered ethics. Okay, credibility-centered ethics, and I've told you guys over and over again that there's very little new in speech communications, right? Credibility-centered ethics comes from Aristotle's three modes of persuasion. Pathos, logos, and ethos. Okay? Pathos is an appeal to your emotions. Anybody know the worst appeal? I mean, the biggest, I won't say worst because that's a judgment. Anybody know what the biggest appeal to emotion that you see on a regular basis in this country is? Somebody in my last class got it right. I mean, like that fast. It's that ASPCA commercial. In the arms of an angel. And then they just show hungry dogs. And you're like, ugh! I don't know what it is, but give me some place to call so I can give you my credit card number. Okay? Tell me I'm lying. Okay? What's the first thing that, you walk in, and I have called car salesmen on this. And we'll talk about car salesmen a lot because they use a lot of these basic techniques. You walk in and talk to a car salesman and you say, hey, how you doing? Can I help you today? I say, yeah, I'm looking to buy a car. First thing he asks you is, well, what kind of car are you looking to buy? And, you say, hey, I'm looking for something small and economic. The next question for somebody my age or some of the ages that you guys already are again to is, oh, do you have any kids? Now when they ask me that, I go, why do you care? I just told you what kind of car I want to buy. Okay? Because if you say, I have kids, that's how they're going to upsell you on a car. Because they are going to appeal to your paternal or maternal instincts and say, hey, listen, I understand that this is, this is a good car. The VW Jetta is a great car. But I mean, if you've got kids and you want your kids to be comfortable and you want your kids to be safe, you're going to need to upgrade to the Touareg. Yeah, it's a few extra dollars, $38,000. It's a few extra dollars. But can you put a price on the safety of your children? And you know how many people will then go, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm all about my kids. Okay? Yeah, I now tell, when a car salesman asks me, and when I bought my truck, we're going to talk about that guy a lot. He said, hey, do you have any kids? And I'm going, I'm buying a pickup truck. Why do you care? It's like, oh, okay. All right? So pathos is an appeal to emotion. What's the problem with an appeal to emotion? What does it take to maintain that emotion? Okay? You remember how, and again, I'm not going to place any judgments on this. If you agree with him, hey, God bless you. President of the United States started out his campaign. First thing he said was, the Mexican government is sending us rapists and murderers across the border. Okay? He created fear. How do you create fear? Or do you maintain fear?
Keep saying it.
Well, not only keep saying it, you have to escalate it.
So you have to make it sound bigger than what it actually is coming.
Yeah, you have to keep up in the ante. So because we attenuate the fear. Okay? So now we've gone from they're sending us rapists and murderers to they're sending invading armies. Literally, that is what has been happening over the last 2. If you go back and you track what the president has been saying over the last 4 years, he's just been ratcheting up the threat with little or no evidence to support it. Okay? The next is logos. Logos is it comes from the basic of the word we use, logic. Okay? It is an appeal. It is an argument based on reason and evidence. Okay? I mean, you stand up, you make an argument, you support it with evidence, and there you go. Logos is incredibly important if you're not known to the people and you don't have credentials. Like in this class, you guys are going to be speaking on a whole lot of topics that you may or may not be an expert on, and I'm okay with that. But you'll need to cite evidence to bolster that effect. Okay? Hopefully, logos is a part of every persuasive speech anybody gives, or every speech anybody gives ever. Okay? The last one is going to be ethos. And you're going to hear me say ethos over and over again. Ethos is persuasion based on the personal credibility of the speaker. We call it credibility-centered ethics. Why do you want to be an ethical speaker? Because if I get caught being unethical, people aren't going to listen to me next time. Okay, we seem to be getting away from that more and more. Okay, but still at a basic personal level, we still believe in ethos. Okay? Give you an example. I'm going to talk about my pickup truck. I got a Chevy Colorado. It's parked right out here. I wanted the diesel because I care about the planet, but I also care about my bottom line. And I was driving a big ass Ram 1500 V8 Hemi pickup truck, 5.7 liter, 13 miles to the gallon on the highway. Okay, and it was just costing me a couple $100 just to fill it up with gas and drive back and forth to here. So I wanted something that got better gas mileage. So I got downsized, got the Chevy Colorado with the diesel engine. The only place I could get it, and I'm not going to name them, but if you don't have to be a rocket surgeon to figure out who I bought it from. It was a Chevy dealership here in Aiken County. Okay, and do your math. Okay, one of the reasons I bought it from them was because George, my salesman, told me, "Hey, listen, we have got a fantastic service department. Want to take you back and introduce you to the head of the service department." Met the head of the service department. It was really great. Got a good price on it. They got me the truck I wanted. Off we went. I'd had it about 3. Well, first of all, we were driving. 2 weeks later, we were driving down to Fort Lauderdale, and diesel engines now have diesel emission fluid to help cut their emissions. The diesel emission fluid indicator went off and said, if you don't refill in 99 miles, we're going to shut your engine off. Okay, that way they keep diesel engines from running around like that. Okay, pulled into a Chevy dealership in Jacksonville. They fixed it quick, easy. Took about 2 hours. It was subject to a recall. Okay, are you in this class or are you in the next one?
I'm sorry. Really, I'm sorry.
That is a student that is just ready to learn. Okay, well, we still got like 5 minutes, right? 9:25?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, okay. So I got it fixed. They were quick. It was easy. It happened really quick. What I found out later on in doing some research is Chevy has been having trouble with that module, and it needs some work, and they have to tweak it, and they're still doing it. So I was coming back from North Carolina, and over in middle of where I-20 runs in 995, indicator went off again. And it's stepped, and I'm like going, okay, and I'm like figuring how far it is from my house, in case this thing's going to die. And I figure I've got enough mileage to get to this Chevy dealership here in Aiken, South Carolina. So I wheel it into the service department. I got 65 miles left. And I pull in and I said, hey, listen, the indicator says that my engine's going to shut down. He goes, oh, you've got a diesel engine? I said, yeah. Well, we've only got one diesel mechanic. You can bring it back in 2 weeks. I'll make an appointment for you. And I said, I got 65 miles left to drive on this. I live 34 miles from here. Do the math. If I go home, I can't get it back. Not only that, I'm out of the use of my vehicle for 2 weeks. He goes, nothing we can do about it. I said, bring your service manager over here. Service manager goes, nothing we can do about it. So I went, okay. So I left my truck sitting there blocking their bay. And I walked up front to the sales floor, and I saw George, my salesman, talking to a customer. And I walked up and I said, hey, George, I need to talk to you for a second. He goes, I'm with a customer. And I said, and you're not going to have that customer if he hears what I have to say. That got George's attention. We walked back to the service department. I said, George, you told me anytime I need a service on my truck, wheel it in, it's taken care of. He goes, well, what did the service manager say? 2 weeks. So Mr. McInnes, that's the best we can do for you. I said, if I drive all out of here today, I'm never setting foot on this dealership again, period. Nothing we can do for you. I got it to Thompson, had about 50 miles left. Took them 5 minutes to fix it. They just had to reset a sensor. 3 months after that, George calls me. Hey, Mr. McInnes, how you doing? Hey, I'm doing fine, George. How are you? He said, that's great. Hey, listen, how's the truck working out? Well, except for that little glitch right up front, it's great. I love my truck. It's fantastic. It's everything I hoped it would be. Hey, listen, we want you to know that when you come to your time for you to buy your next car, this Chevy dealership in Aiken County, South Carolina, wants to be the dealership you come to. And I went, George, that's not going to happen. Why? You lied to me the last time. And I don't let people lie to me twice. Well, how did I lie? Well, you said I could wheel my car in whenever I wanted to. You didn't tell me it'd be 2 weeks before you just worked on. Okay? Credibility-based ethics, his ethos sucked with me. So he doesn't get the opportunity to persuade me again. Okay? On a very basic level. Now, we can say, I mean, I don't know if Kylie Jenner uses whatever product she's, influencing you about. Okay? I don't know if, whatever P. Diddy's calling himself now, drinks the vodka he advertises. I don't care. But when I'm making eye-to-eye contact with somebody and they intentionally lie to me, we're done. Okay? Everybody get that? So we're going to be talking a lot about, we still got a minute. Okay? This is how we are going to be an ethical speaker. Make sure everybody gets one of these. I am now handing out to you the National Communication Association's Credo for Ethical Communications. In addition to the inclusivity policy we have at Aiken Technical College, I expect you to follow the 19 points in this ethical communication credo. Okay? Done with 45 seconds to spare. See, there was a lot more. I had a lot more words on this. See, this is why I hate PowerPoint. Okay, all the veterans in the group will understand the Department of Defense. You put what you want to say on the PowerPoint because you're going to assume people aren't really listening to you. They're just sort of reading it. Everybody calm down. Okay? But then when I found out that I'd be talking and people would be looking, and I would flip a slide and just stand there and not talk. And people are just writing down whatever was written on the on PowerPoint. Okay? Be honest, have integrity, be fair, respect others, and be responsible for your actions. If you get caught being dishonest and somebody calls you on it, yeah, the standard response now is, well, that's just fake news. Okay? No, just own up to it. All right, who's got any questions? All right, Martin Luther King Day weekend. Boss always told me when you used to have a long weekend, he said, I don't want you to wind up in 3 places. Jail, hospital, and the newspaper. Okay? All right, so everybody have a good weekend. We will see you guys again Tuesday.
I did have a question.
Shoot.
The statement of purpose, is that just what we declare at the beginning of the 2-minute?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, then.
It is just that simple.
Okay.
get my L and my R. I've been using these for over a year. Look at the bag. That's nasty. Oh, let me